is that cancer is a perversion of the normal cell division process. The body essentially turns against itself. Well, the big government that we have today is a perversion of our founders' vision for limited government and the way that they wrote the Constitution and the way that we're supposed to do things. Number two, cancer is often a result of making a bad decision. Well, we've made some bad decisions as voters, and the people that we've elected have made some bad decisions. And so, here we find ourselves. Number three, when a cancer gets started, it establishes its own vascular system so it can feed itself, whether the body has anything left to sustain itself with or not. Well, our big government has put into place hundreds of taxes, fees, permit requirements, all to feed itself. And they're doing this without any concern about the damage that taking this money out of the private economy is doing to the rest of us. The fourth reason is that when cancer grows in your body and it's untreated, it gets out of control and it takes over the whole body. Well, I think we can see that big government's doing everything it can to try to take over our lives. Now, the fifth reason that I came up with is that cancer inhibits, restrains, prevents normal bodily functions. A person with lung cancer, for example, has a harder and harder time breathing as the cancer progresses. Our big government no longer provides for the general welfare as it's required to in the preamble to our Constitution, but it acts more and more in ways that prevent our society from functioning normally. Well, why are we here tonight? We're here to talk about this drilling moratorium. Is that society functioning normally? Or are we being put upon? You'll have to decide. But, government is supposed to help us. It's supposed to make it possible for us to live a better life. You have to ask yourself, is this what the government's doing for us? Well, let me give you an example of where it's not. You better hope you don't get snake bit by a coral snake, because the last snake venom for coral snake bite was made 5 years ago, and the date on it just ran out. The only venom that's left is being made by a Mexican company, and it's not approved by the FDA. And folks, it ain't going to be approved because there are only about 100 bites a year, and they can't afford the $5 million or so that it's going to take to go through that process. So, is the government helping us, or is it hurting us? The sixth reason. Cancer performs no vital function. It exists for its own sake. More and more we have evidence that the big government's actions show that it's not designed to promote progress and prosperity for the American people. It's simply the act of folks who are operating a system of the government, by the government, for the government. There's an old saying, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks and it has feathers, it's probably a duck. Now, you see things that government has done at all levels, and you think, man, this is crazy. Why are they doing this? And then you see things like the story that recently broke in some of the rural areas this past week, where a couple of public officials were indicted for allegedly involving themselves in a scheme that the mayor of Shreveport called ridiculous, bizarre, and off the wall. And why did they do it? Because they were enriching themselves. So it just makes you question why a lot of the things that we see happening are happening. And the seventh reason why the government is like a cancer is that cancer is unsustainable. It always kills its host if it's left untreated. Well, folks, I don't think there's anybody who would sit here tonight and make the case that the government we have today is sustainable. Okay? And along those lines, senator from South Carolina that says us Tea Party people are unsustainable. Well, Congressman Cassidy, when you see Lindsey Graham, would you pass along a message to him from me? Senator, you're unsustainable. My message to Lindsey Graham is he reminds me of the passage in Revelation where God tells one of the churches, you're neither hot nor cold, so I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. Lindsey Graham is neither hot nor cold, and when his term is up, the people of South Carolina, with the help of Tea Party people from all over the country, are going to spit him out of their mouth. Now, if we have cancer, what do we need to do? Well, there are three things you do when you have cancer: chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. The chemotherapy is that we need to pressure our elected officials to repeal big government programs. Gee, I can think of one that we might want to start with. Abolish unnecessary agencies, cut the budget, quit spending, and do things that enable people to do for themselves, not effect any more big government solutions because they don't work. Okay? The radiation that we need is to expose big government folks, expose their agenda for what it really is. They're out for themselves at our expense. And the surgery, well, we have an election coming up in November, and I suggest that we take the scalpel into the voting booth with us, thin out the herd, and put some folks in office that really want to do the right thing.